And we're live. Welcome everybody here to the Lakers Lounge. I'm Anthony Irwin, talking tonight about what? We're all still here waiting. The Lakers are dragging their feet on this again, just like they drug their feet on Darvin Ham previously, where we knew for a week that Darvin Ham was going to be fired, and it took them all the way up until Friday to news dump that. And here we stand again, where the Lakers are deliberating on a decision that I have been told is already done. And I guess we'll talk about what the last 24 hours, 48 hours have been like for me. I'm recording this right after watching Kendrick Lamar absolutely murder Drake. He absolutely murdered Drake in front of 20,000 people at the Inglewood Forum. I have some thoughts on that as well. But that, think about how cool that had to be for Black Hippie, right? Like that had to be incredible. Those guys came up in the shadows of the forum, probably looked at that building coming up together and said, man, one day, right? One day. And then they come together on that stage tonight. And that was top 15 moment of the night. Dr. Dre went out there. I thought at one point Pac might go out there. I kept this as a Lakers Lounge because coming off of that show, this is going to have that kind of a vibe. It's going to meander. I'm going to answer your guys' questions. I want to know what you guys thought about that Drake thing. That was incredible. Wah, 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 wah. Oh man, I'm gonna put this show in the Slack, in the Lakers Lounge Slack that we have, and see if Raj wants to hop on stage here. He's come up on stage after plenty of playoff losses in the past. I kind of wonder if he's going to want to come up here after just, getting 40-pieced in the finals. Dude, Empire Jeff, that I saw somebody say it was like an anime, right? It's like wow, 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 wow. Like that was just, it was so insane. It was absolutely insane. Fucking Dre kicking off Not Like Us with I See Dead People. Dr. Dre does that. Like Kendrick Lamar got Dr. Dre to introduce one of the most brutal diss tracks in the history of music. Oh my God. And then he brought up everybody onto the stage. He even had to tell Russell Westbrook and DeMar DeRozan to space out, right? Things got too cluttered because they were on the court together. And he told them, guys, we have a whole ass stage here. And they're like, oh, my bad. No, I have so many jokes about that entire thing. It was so much damn fun to watch. So eventually I'll come back to that. But you're right, Jacob. I do got to talk about what's going on with the coach. I'll come back to that and all of that here in a second. A quick reminder or a quick request to those of you watching live, please do hit that subscribe button on YouTube as you guys are watching live. To those of you who are watching on Twitter, please do head on over to youtube.com/@. I have tears coming out of my eyes, guys. I have tears coming out of my eyes. youtube.com/@Lakers Lounge is where you can find the show. And that's where you'll be as up to date as you could possibly be. One could argue ahead of some other platforms as everybody waits for Woj to break what has already been done now for 48 hours. But yeah, I will talk about JJ Redick. Let's get to it. JJ Redick called the finals. I'll just give a quick refresher on where things stood and how I arrived at reporting that JJ Redick is going to be or is the Lakers' next head coach. Whether or not there is an agreement in place is up for debate. I am told at the very least there is a handshake agreement, and the two sides have entered negotiations for the position. Where those negotiations stand, if the contract is at, pen has met paper, I guess if you want to get semantic, we could go there, right? But I would say though that, again, like I just said a second ago, with Darvin Ham, the season ended and we had to wait like 5 or 6 days for the Darvin Ham thing to be official. The entire time we were waiting, all of us who cover the team, all of the people who I talked to, throughout the industry, the people who I talked to in league circles and those close to the Lakers were all like, we don't know. Like we legitimately don't know what the holdup is. We know that the decision has basically been made. Darvin Ham is waiting to be officially notified. We're all just waiting for this to get to its endpoint. And with that story, because it was somebody losing his job, I held off. I said, I don't want to like, I don't need the clout so badly that I would go out there and jump out ahead of everybody and be like, ha ha, I'm the guy that broke the like it's somebody's career. And I just said, that's one that I'm going to sit out. And I waited like everybody else those 5 days for the Lakers to finally get to Friday, and Friday news dump that for everybody. This time around, again, it was whenever the finals, the morning. Yeah, the morning after the finals was, I believe, Monday. My days at this point are all jumbled together. Today is Wednesday. So, yeah, Monday. Monday morning, I noticed that JJ Redick wasn't on ESPN anywhere. And I've also noticed over the last little while that Stephen A. Smith has been throwing dirt at JJ Redick at every possible turn in a way that you wouldn't think he would with an actual teammate. It's honestly been kind of weird. Like, kind of rooting for JJ Redick to beat the shit out of Stephen A. Smith at this point. JJ Redick should hop on there and do wop, 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 wop with Stephen A. Smith at this point, because like I even saw today again, like JJ Redick is an acquired taste. Like all good coaches are assholes. All competitors tend to be assholes. You have to be a maniacal SOB to be willing to go out there and do to your opponent what Kendrick Lamar did to Drake tonight, right? You have to be a serial killer. Man, while he had everybody on stage tonight, Kendrick Lamar is preaching peace, preaching peace, preaching peace. By the way, Drake, you're a pedophile. Everybody, we got to say, this guy's a pedophile. A minor. Like, it was just, but that's the way you have to be wired. Like, that's, oh my God, he actually did it. See, this is why I made this a lounge. I'm happy for this. Raj is hopping on here after another tough playoff loss. And Raj, this is no longer a close sweep, man. It's just a sweep.
It's sad because I actually think it's closer than it should have been. But tonight will not display that, which is sad. It's like, what it's like, Anthony. It's like going down 3-0, but then like in between there's a game where you blow them out by like 35, but then they win the series like 4-1. But like no one remembers the one game you actually won by 40 because the series
like the Mavericks just now, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Maybe no, I won't go 6. I won't do that. I won't do not right now. It's too early.
Dude, it was
I can't.
The only thing that has you saved by even like the slightest of margins is that LeBron didn't go on stage.
Yes,
had LeBron gone on stage, it would have been it. Like Drake had to retire.
Well, I guess LeBron is in LA, right? I mean, he is LA, but I mean, like Russ and DeMar are, so I understood that. But yes, from a pure beef standpoint, yes, LeBron not going on stage is probably worth those 3 combined, right? Because I think he's the DeMar one is kind of sad too, because DeMar is very like DeMar's like a
Drake courtside tapping him up.
DeMar's like he's like an adopted Canadian, right? Like Canada's kind of adopted DeMar as their long lost son. When he got traded to the Spurs, there were a lot of people that were very sad about it and spoke greatly. And DeMar even spoke out. Toronto was very much a second home for him. So that's the one. But Russ, I understand. James Harden was there, did not get a stage invite, I guess.
Sat out another fourth quarter.
Yes.
How he normally does it.
From Artesia, so I don't know like if that's too far from LA to be considered.
There's like a like they were checking.
I'm not sure.
They were checking birthplaces at the bottom of the stairs. Right. No, man, like Glenview's just a little far. It's just like
You're out of the zip code. Yeah.
Let me see your tattoo. Which area code is on your forearm, and based
Right.
on
Right.
that, you will be allowed on stage or not. Um, no, we'll come back to the Kendrick thing later in the show, because the vast majority of everybody sitting here watching this, I
This
would
would
have
be a
thought.
great time for the Lakers to announce it, by the way. If we can just get past this news cycle or whatever we're gonna call this, let's get to the head coaching news. This is a great
I
time.
really thought for a second, because they showed LeBron there, and I thought JJ would be there like rocking with him. Like, could you imagine like JJ Redick, or when Kendrick was like, hold up, more people come up on stage. We got room for plenty more. We got plenty more. Hold on, we got room for one more. And
Right.
now the head
That
coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, JJ Redick.
that would have been great. That would have made it. Yeah.
That was just that event. Like, even you, the Drake fan, has to admit, like, that whole thing was incredible.
Well, I'm from LA. Like I've grown up
Yeah.
actually in Los Angeles, Harbor City area. So I think most of that, and I was telling you on Slack that the way I cope is most of that to me were people more supporting
Repping
LA
LA.
than kind of being engaged in this back and forth beef that's gone on. Like YG
Could
and
you imagine
Mustard and
our scene
all
is
those people.
JJ comes up in a
Ha- Have you watched the Clip show, Anthony, on Hulu? I don't know if you watched it, but the way they
yeah.
depict JJ is very much in that manner where like he's coming out in a do-rag and stuff like that.
It would have been
That's
great if the actor who plays JJ Redick was up on the stage there.
yeah, right. That would have been great.
Lawrence Fishburne wanders up onto the stage. Like, he can't quite figure out whether or not he's going to do Doc's voice or not. No. Oh man, no, we really do got to talk about JJ Redick. I want to know from your perspective, Raj. Like,
Okay.
I obviously, like, kind of like I was asking Harrison the other day. I obviously have had my perspective where I have been told JJ is the guy now for going on 48 hours.
Right.
And I've just been sitting here, with my mentions in absolute
Oh,
shambles,
burning up.
because
Yeah.
because God forbid I'm 48 hours ahead of Woj and Shams.
hmm
But like, and by the way, Woj and Shams both been lying to you this whole time. Like, it, and yet somehow, because they haven't announced it, I'm the fraud. Like, the two guys, Woj told you that JJ Redick never figured into this thing. He was lying then. And then Shams said that Dan Hurley, and actually Shams, even behind the scenes, I'm told, is telling people that Dan Hurley never figured into this thing seriously. Hurley literally got an offer. Like, we know, like, Dan Wojcicki, who
Can
has
we
no
can we just
reason.
believe scams? Can I believe that Dan Hurley situation was just like, I don't watch movies obviously, but just like a little script that him and Woj and everyone wrote, and just kind of we just skip over that whole. But I don't even know how to. I don't even know
It
how to
was such a
analyze that
weird
part.
thing, man.
Yeah,
Like, what
Hurley's doing interviews.
the weirdest thing about that was, like, Woj says Dan Hurley is the guy, has always been the guy. He's, there's never been
Right.
anybody else there, right? And I'm like, so if he's been the guy, they waited a month to talk to the guy,
Right.
and when I pointed that out, again, I'm being, I'm being told whatever, however people are going to feel about me, people are just going to feel that way. But I have the information that I have, and I, basically the timeline is that the Lakers really liked JJ Redick heading into this thing. They were hoping to be wowed by him in the conversations, or whether we want to call them conversations, meetings, formal interviews, informal interviews, like where people wearing golf polos, where they're wearing ties, like whatever it is. The Lakers were hoping to be wowed by JJ Redick in the conversations that they were having with him. He did do that, but did tell them he can't do anything that would burn bridges with ESPN. And he needed to finish out his time with the finals, and he wanted to focus on the finals. And the Lakers didn't like that response, I'm told. Like, that was not, they were basically saying, like, Mark Jackson agreed to a position and called the finals and wound up just coaching the Warriors right after the finals. And I think the Lakers kind of thought that, like, you're a rookie head coach, you should just kind of take the agreement. Take the agreement. Like let's just like move forward. And then in that time, while they were waiting for JJ Redick, Dan Hurley comes into the fold somehow. Dan Hurley,
Right.
who was unhappy with the contract offer that he got from UConn after winning back-to-back national championships, just so happens to be available to the Lakers again. And I don't know if you heard or watched the show that Ethan and I did. I thought Ethan did phenomenal reporting and dot connecting for his Substack. But he and I spoke about this too, and like it really appeared like Woj wanted Hurley to be the Lakers coach more than Hurley wanted to be the Lakers coach, or the Lakers may have wanted Hurley based on the offer that they actually made to Hurley. And now here we are. And on the other side of the Hurley thing, I was told that both the Lakers had cooled on JJ Redick and that JJ Redick had cooled on the Lakers, that he had seen some red flags during that process, and especially with the Hurley situation, that he needed some convincing to come back into the fold too. So they met last Saturday for however long. I think Shams is saying that they met for another 2 hours. I don't know how long you need to talk. Why two people need to talk for 2 hours is beyond me for a job interview. So they meet. Redick wows them again. Redick and the Lakers, I was told and have been told and have no reason to believe otherwise. Redick and the Lakers basically kind of let bygones be bygones and were able to move forward together. And then on Monday in the morning, I saw that he wasn't on ESPN's airwaves, and Jay Williams just basically announced it.
Right.
So when I saw that clip with Jay Williams, that he, by the way, has never walked back, I texted the people that I know close to the Lakers and said, okay, this is done, right? We're doing the thing with Darvin again. But because this isn't somebody losing their job, I basically said, you know what? I will go out and report what I know on this front, because this isn't as serious as Darvin Ham's career being put on hold, right? So, and now here we are, 48 hours later, after all of that stuff. Mark Stein again wrote in his Substack today that the people that he is talking to are saying that JJ Redick is going to be the coach of the Lakers as well. We did have Vince Goodwill. One bit of development in the story is that the Pistons could potentially consider Redick. I took that to mean that the negotiations between Redick and the Lakers have not been as productive as maybe they may have hoped. And that, you know, if you look at it from a mathematics standpoint, Redick probably makes about $3 million a year for his ESPN stuff, right? First Take, calling the finals, being on that team, right? That's in the range of about $3 million. And then his YouTube and his production company and all of that, that's another, I would say, probably a couple $1 million a year, right? So if he's going to walk away from at least the ESPN side of that, he's going to need a bump of you know, he's going to, and plus like the taxes that he's going to pay in California,
Right.
he's going to need a bump of at least well over, his starting point, I would say, is probably going to be around $7 million, $7 or $8 million is where I would say JJ Redick or the Lakers could like start their conversations. If I were JJ, I would ask for the Dan Hurley contract, the 6 years, $70 million. Why not? Like, you know, the Lakers need you. So I would have started there. If I were JJ, and then arrive somewhere in the middle in that kind of ballpark of about $8-9 million a year, right? Maybe double figures. Maybe you can get all the way to $10 million a year. And whether it's a negotiation thing, today was Juneteenth, right? Maybe the Lakers didn't want to announce the hiring of a white head coach on Juneteenth. Like maybe that played a potential role here. Regardless, whatever the situation might be, I'm, here to tell everybody that like the based on the information that I have, there is no change in the story here. Even the Detroit Pistons stuff, I think, is just noise. I think JJ Redick is still going to be the Lakers head coach. And with me telling you that, Raj, and from your vantage point, watching this entire thing play out, how have you felt about it?
Here's because I obviously, speaking as a fan perspective, and always funny because I always make the kitchen kind of comparison here, and I think I'm a little closer, obviously, than people from the outside. But people are outside, Anthony. I think, obviously, they believe Shams and Woj are somewhere in the house, but the house is burning and the kitchen's just on fire. And Anthony, you walk in and you come out, and I'm a little closer. Be like, the guys, the food's ready. They're like, food's ready. The house is on fire. How is the food ready? Like, the food's done. Like,
They prioritize cooking the food.
yeah, you're like, and everyone's like, "There's no way the food's done. The house is on fire. This is going on, right?" Dan Hurley's here as like a fire extinguisher, whatever. I think that's how people see. And again, I have no idea how to contextualize the Dan Hurley stuff. I think it's very strange. I've never seen a coach's contract negotiations come out, like the actual numbers, Anthony, that of a coach that did not get hired. Is there precedent for that? Like people were, telling me Mike Brown's numbers. Mike Brown was on the Kings. Like that's his contract numbers were coming out, but he was negotiating a new deal with his incumbent team. For the Dan Hurley news, I believe 570 was the number that came out, and then to have a
670,
670, excuse me, and then to have a press tour about a job you did not take. And the only issue I had with it was his wife playing the victim role in it. The absolute it was an emotional decision to turn down $70 million. Okay. I mean, I guess so.
As if he didn't have another $70 million offer
right.
like waiting for him on the other side of turning down $70 million bucks.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the only part that I hate you with. But I always thought, JJ was the guy. As I told you, I was rewatching Mind the Game shows, and I'm glad that that was not, time wasted anymore, because I think it's very interesting when you go back and listen to those shows through the lens of JJ as a coach and LeBron as his player. It gets very interesting, and it's very clear those two are playing kind of this cat and mouse game where they can't really tell you they're having these side conversations. You just said, how can you have a 2 hour, like, why do you need a 2 hour interview? LeBron and JJ do a 1.5 hour, breakdown of plays every single week. So I'm sure hopefully there's some decisions going on inside with JJ and the Lakers management. But yeah, that's how I see it from the outside. Again, like, you're closer to this. Like, I want to just believe the Dan Hurley stuff was just a movie, and it was just like a nice little scene, and
You
it
want to believe
made the
Sean's
Lakers.
version of the story that like Hurley never happened?
It made the Lakers look. I mean, I hope the Lakers didn't think it made them look like they didn't go into that hoping that that was some PR move, because
Yeah.
I don't think Laker fans appreciated that at all. Kind of that, Kevin Garnett meme from some movie of like, why would you show me it if I can't have it, type of thing. Like, why would you show me? Like, I would rather not. I would rather not know who. I mean, obviously, I know who Dan Hurley is, but I would rather not know his connection with the Lakers. I would rather this moved on. Obviously, James Borrego was a name that I guess keeps popping up, but I never really thought of him as real contention over JJ. So, and Anthony, I heard you, I think others call him a podcaster who has no experience. I think his real experience is he played 15 years in the league. Like, that's the experience, right? Like, to me, that's his.
Well, I thought I said no coaching experience.
No coaching experience. Yes.
If I said no experience, then I misspoke.
No,
He
right,
does
right. Not,
he does obviously 15 years in the league, obviously paying very close attention as a podcaster. But like, let's be real. If he doesn't do the specific podcast that you're talking about, Mind the Game, he's not up for this job.
But I mean, maybe he's not. But I think it's not just the Mind the Game. JJ's built, and I don't use this term lightly, and both of us are in this space, so I use it with the definition I have. JJ's built a media empire. Like, he legitimately has. Once he retired, he's built an absolute media empire with the Old Man and the Three. Obviously, parlaying that to a podcast with LeBron, not only getting the ESPN, job that he said he had to beg for games. If you, again, people go listen to his shows. He said he had to beg for, to do actual commentary on games. To that, obviously, Doc Rivers taking the job with Milwaukee, and kind of got him into the head seat. And now he's doing final games. But like, he's been compared, Anthony, and I've seen this, to like Derek Fisher and Steve Nash, right? These are also players that went right to coaching. Head coaching. I think the difference to me is it's very clear JJ is, and this doesn't mean he'll be a good coach, but I think these are like positive things that I look for. He's way more detailed and knowledgeable about the current game, and he has kept up with the game in a way that those guys just didn't. In my opinion, they had a little bit more outdated philosophies that they brought in. Steve Nash taking over because him and KD and Kyrie were very great friends. Derek Fisher taking over in New York because Phil Jackson, he was his point guard. JJ, you can tell, is at least very much, ingratiated with the current lead, understanding current concepts, understanding current schemes, and it has a very modern kind of game and a very he's still a student of the game, to me, in a way those guys weren't. And I think that's important for a first-time head coach. So I've been on the JJ train for a very long time. I hope, everything you're saying is correct, and he's the guy, and we can kind of move forward towards the draft next week. I think it's next week.
I would say that Derek Fisher was pretty detail oriented. When by the time he just didn't have a podcast to show us how detail oriented he was,
Not
right? But he was
not
a
not
very
detail
regimented guy.
not detail oriented, but was he? I don't think he was as like kept up with the game because his job didn't ask for it, right? He wasn't a guy I think that was watching as many games or just wasn't involved with the league as much as
Oh, I
JJ was.
see.
Right,
Yeah, I
like
think
he's
Fisher
like
retired as a player and basically jumped right into coaching. And
yes, I
then
think.
and like
Mhm,
so your point, you're basically saying that like Redick, because of the podcast, because of his job with ESPN, because of the
mhm.
stuff that he does, that like he has kept up with it, and because of the way that he covers the league, right? Where he
Yes,
does vouch a lot for the modernity of the sport and the evolution of the sport and all those things. Like I see the point that you're making there to kind of differentiate that.
right.
I would still argue that Derek Fisher, like coming straight from a player to becoming a coach right off of being a player, you had to be pretty like up to date on the game if you're just retired, right? Like
Sure.
I think he literally walked off of the Lakers and onto the Knicks, if I remember correctly,
Uh,
or whatever
he had
team
a
he
few.
retired from.
Yeah, he had a few years in OKC, and I think
Yeah,
he
you're
took it.
right.
He did a. I think he did a year or two. I can't remember on Spectrum, I believe, before going to the Knicks. But in any case, like I see your point there. Like I'm not saying, I'm not saying Derek Fisher was some like old dinosaur that just walked into the league. I just don't think he was keeping up with the game the same way that JJ was. And maybe it is because JJ stuff is so public. Like there's just never been a coach that has had this much content of like his philosophies uh on saved video form.
Yeah,
It's a great thing to be able to go back and listen to.
yeah. I think one major difference there is that Derek Fisher, you know, grew up and his like basketball identity was built through the triangle and his experience with Phil. And it
Hmm.
was very clear at that point in the NBA that we were kind of moving away from the triangle and that type of philosophy. And the difference who would be like JJ Redick very much agrees with and sees the game in a way that most of the smart teams tend to see the game. So I
Right.
get what you're saying there. I think that is something to kind of hold on to if you're looking for optimism to compare these situations. Even still though, like it look, the Lakers are basically hoping that he develops into a great coach, but nobody walks into from the
Sure.
booth walks into being a championship level head coach. Like that just it has never happened before. It has literally never happened before. You can maybe say Pat Riley, but he was an assistant before he did that, right? So like going from zero coaching experience to championship expectations, not hopes, not dreams, but the Lakers are a championship or bust organization, and you have the most championship or bust player in the league right now in LeBron James on your team. JJ doesn't have time to just kind of grow into the position. And by the way, there aren't the kind of assistant coaches out there that I'm gonna be like, all right, they're going to help him through everything that he needs to learn here. It's like it's Terry Stotts, who was a fine coach. It's Scott Brooks, who was like a fine coach or whatever. But there isn't like I guess maybe you could say Stan Van Gundy, who in his like prime as a coach was an elite coach, right? Championship caliber coach. Maybe there you could say it, but I don't know if the Lakers can afford him or if he's even willing to coach right now or be involved in the game in that way. Um, he was just what like a month ago on the air telling Dan Lebitard that his wife, killed herself and that is something that like I don't know if he wants to or can
Yeah.
focus on basketball in that way with that going on in his personal life. So yeah, I don't I can understand. I am kind of like cautiously optimistic here with Reddick that he'll eventually kind of figure this out, but hoping that he goes from the booth to championship caliber head coach feels pretty unfair, honestly.
my, my take for coaching, Anthony, has always been you just don't know, right? You really don't. Monty Williams just got fired today. Obviously, Monty fired with 5 years left on his deal. This is a guy that won Coach of the Year 2 years ago. That was in the NBA Finals. Now the question is, was he a good coach? Did it run out because of the way he handles things? Does it run out because Chris Paul just kind of has a ceiling that his teams hit, where they can kind of listened to him for so long. I'm not sure. So all those things with JJ, you won't know until he coaches. But I think the comparison the Lakers hope it is, Anthony, is Steve Kerr, right? That's what you're hoping for.
Yeah.
Steve Kerr obviously was a GM, but again, followed the league very closely because you have to at that position. Although the Shaq deal is still kind of strange for that team when you look back at it. But I mean, like Steve Kerr obviously followed the
I'll
league
never
very close.
forget Tim Legler.
Mm-hmm.
Twice I think he did this. Once when it was LeBron and Shaq
Okay.
was going to Cleveland, and they were asking him like how it's going to work with Shaq being there on LeBron's team. And Legler was like, all right, so here's the lane that LeBron likes to drive.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's put Shaq in the middle of it. I don't know how this is going to work. And then I think previously he did a version of that too with like the Phoenix Suns, where it was like, so this Phoenix Suns are known as like the 7 seconds or less Phoenix
Right.
Suns. I don't think Shaq has made it up the court in 7 seconds in his life. I was just like, he was always going to be incredible at this. I'm really happy. It was really cool seeing Scott Van Pelt give him his flowers and like basically tell ESPN to pay him on the air.
Right, yeah. Tim Legger's been awesome, and it was cool to see his kind of role, heightened with the ESPN as the finals have gone on. But yeah, you're hoping that JJ's more in the Steve Kerr realm, right? Where obviously JJ doesn't have any executive kind of experience, but same with Kerr. Kerr was not an executive when he took the Warriors job. He was an announcer. He was doing games on TNT. Was actually very good at it. I enjoyed Steve Kerr on those games when the Lakers were in the conference finals, actually beating the Suns. Funny enough, but like Steve Kerr took the Warriors job while he was doing that, and he went in. He was very successful. Now he inherited prime Steph and prime Clay, and we didn't really
I'm Dre.
know. We don't even know what
Mhm.
Draymond was, so that's more of a credit towards Steve Kerr. But he looked at them and found a system that he saw like, hey, they have the best two shooters in the world. They really don't need to run pick and roll every time. Like we can just give the ball to Steph running off a screen and let's just change basketball. I'm not sure if that was his exact kind of goal there, but he definitely walked in with a plan. And I think JJ Redick at least has been watching the league long enough. I think he's a psycho competitor. He's cut from that cloth at least. And again, none of this means he'll be a good coach, but at least the stuff that I listened to from him, I think he's like, I don't think JJ's walking in like, okay, now I got to start my playbook, right? Like I don't think that's what happened. I think JJ probably has set plays, set defensive schemes, set offenses he likes to run. Obviously, him and LeBron talk. I'm sure like an hour and a half doesn't go by and he just turns it off, right? Like JJ inherits prime AD and AR. Yes, yes, and Jalen Hood Schifino walking into his prime, by the way.
Yeah,
But yeah, so we'll see what JJ Redick
certainly.
does with those guys. JJ Redick does with those guys. But that's the hope. You don't know. Like you look back at the Coach of the Year winners. I was looking at it. Only one of them, or only two of them, are on their team for the last like 6 years, and that's Mike Brown, and Tom Thibodeau, who won it actually in 2021. So you just never know with coaches. But I think JJ is the best one out. And I'm cautiously optimistic as well.
It's been really funny watching the James Borrego thing.
Yeah,
Like, it kind of reminds me of Vinny Del Negro. Do you remember those like coaching
the
cycles where he
Bulls.
was always like, oh, Vinny Del Negro is a leading
Mhm.
candidate for this job, and Vinny Del Negro is going to be the leading candidate for this job. And his agent
Right.
just did absolute work to keep Vinny Del Negro in all of those conversations. And James Borrego has kind of felt like that this time, where it's like every job that opens up. Well, actually, what's funny is that today I was told that James Borrego was like on the verge of accepting the Cleveland
The
Cavaliers
Cavs
job.
job.
And
Yeah.
then the Detroit one became available. And he was like, well, look, at the very least, my bag just got bigger because the Cavs are going to have to pay up a little bit more to keep me away from Detroit, where Trajan Langdon, the guy who was just with Borrego in New Orleans, is now the boss there. So,
Right.
yeah, the Borrego thing has been a real pleasure, a real delight to watch, especially like, let's go Latinos out there. Like, like
B-
this is the most we've ever been wanted on a basketball court.
B-
James Borrego.
Bickerstaff was the one that was fired, right, from Cleveland. Do I have that correct?
What's that?
Bickerstaff is the one that's
Yeah,
fired from
JB.
Cleveland. See, I'm not sure. Is Borrego that much better a coach than Bickerstaff? Like, I'm James Borrego, and they tout it as head coaching experience. Coaching the Hornets from 2 years, like, I just don't think that's obviously that's legit NBA experience, but I think that's not really conducive to what you'll see in a normal organization and with normal players and young guys. And I think Charlotte has been just a tire fire for a very long time. So I don't even really count his head coach, like him and JJ obviously have like a year or two apart of head coaching experience. Now Borrego's been awesome as an assistant, and that's kind of where he's made his name, I believe. But yeah, it's been strange to see his name kind of been thrown everywhere. But it's nice, like people can use the Pistons now instead of us for leverage, right? Let's get another team that like people can use to prop their leverage up, for sure. But it's been interesting.
Yeah, Mark Stein reported that this thing will be official by the end of the week, or that it'll be announced by the end of the week, and whatever. When it's announced or when the decision is made, I guess is the semantic decision or difference that I'm making here, where I was told that the decision was made this week, that JJ was the guy. And here again, like this is where I am just going to cop that I need to be better at this, that like I have to be very careful with the words that I use, because in saying that it is done, that would indicate that the sides have agreed on a contract, right? And that they have figured that out. I meant it more from the standpoint of that, like the Lakers side of their job here was done, and that they had arrived at JJ Redick as their decision. And again, like that's where I got to be better at this. And it has been funny though, over the last 24, 48 hours or so, how many like industry people, like I've said this in the past, and I don't want to like, I really am, I do consider myself a dumbass and a jackass and all of those things. Like I am just a guy who figured this out in podcasting and stuff. And for some reason, a lot of people that I really, really look up to listen to and watch the show. And the number of people, and I'm not going to drop any names here, but the number of people who've been like, there's a non-zero chance the Lakers are like doing this to fuck you over, right? That like they could just wait a couple days and take away from your credibility. And look, I also, by the way, I'm nowhere near vain enough to think that is what's actually going on here. I do think that the Lakers thought that they could maybe get Redick for a little bit cheaper than he's actually going to be, and I do think that there's a very real chance here that it is going back and forth and all of this stuff. But yeah, I tend to think that whether it's tomorrow, whether it's Friday, like the Lakers need to get this done. Like we're already less than a week away from the draft. They still need to hire an assistant coaching staff. They still need to figure out, like on June 29th, you have the opt-in, opt-out dates, right? And those guys who are going to be making those decisions are going to want to know who their head coach is as well. Like they need this done in short order. And the longer that this goes on and the longer that this drags out, and like essentially for those of you who are wondering, like from a basketball or from an organizational standpoint, why this is dragging out, it's because the Lakers are far too collaborative with like at the very top of their organization, where on any given day, Jeannie Buss can say, all right, this is what I want. And on any given day, Linda Rambis can say, nope, this is what I want. And on any given day, Tim Harris, Kurt Rambis, Rob Pelinka can walk in. And Rob Pelinka is the least likely to do it because he knows he has to go along to get along to go along with the rest of those names that I just gave you guys. And in this case, like with Linda Rambis in particular, I've said this on the show. I saw that it was making the rounds again. I forget what show I did this morning, but I said that like the person in that front office or in the organization who is, I think, kind of the lowest on JJ Redick, I've been told, is Linda Rambis. And like that in and of itself is like, why does this matter? Like, why does her input matter? She's the director of special projects for the Lakers. Her having input on basketball decisions is just weird. Like, and if her claim is that JJ doesn't have the experience, well, based off of what experience are you drawing from here, Linda? And so I like when you guys ask, like, why hasn't this been done yet? And why did it take a week for the Lakers to come to the conclusion that Darvin Ham should be fired, and Darvin Ham knew that it was coming? Why did it take a week to get to making that final decision or whatever? It's because there are too many cooks in the kitchen, and the front office is too thin to actually operate at a professional level. And you arrive at a place here where, like, especially right now, given the state of the organization, Nobody wants to be the person whose name is on the dotted line of a decision, because if their name is on the dotted line of that decision, that means that they have to face the music on that decision if and when it doesn't work out. And there is too much ambiguity throughout the franchise right now to for somebody like you are one bad decision away from your voice mattering less, and that's a tough way to operate.
Well, this is an important decision, though, right? Like, this is a huge decision. Your next coach, you just fired your last two in very short order. You have to get this right. Well, I was thinking about while you were talking, Anthony. You talked about all the cooks in the kitchen. We have a few cooks that aren't in the kitchen. Like, we have a few cooks that are calling out what to make while not being in the kitchen. And those guys, obviously, you had Rich Paul come out today and speak on the Bronny situation, which I think was very fascinating, right? Speaking about like a direct quote. If it was tied to LeBron, I would have forced them to trap Bronny at 17, which is very, very eye-opening kind of quote there. But that's another person, and they've already separated themselves from the coaching search, right? They've been very clear that LeBron has no influence on the coaching decision. Something, just speaking as a fan, I don't believe, but that's fine if that's their public kind of stake on that. But yeah, with all the cooks,
fine, but it is what it is.
I mean, it's fine that they want to take that position, and I think that's a decision that has spawned from the Russell Westbrook kind of fiasco that's gone on, and who actually pulled the trigger. And to your point again, 10 fingers on the. I've never shot a gun before, but like 10 fingers on the trigger, and like who deciding, I guess, who gets to pull it. And there's some questions about who decided that, but I think that's where you're at, and hopefully they make this decision soon. But I want to ask you, Anthony, because I think, like, from the fans, like from just a fan perspective, how does, I guess, when you're going about looking for this news and trying to confirm it, when these leaks start to come out, is part of this also like the Lakers, I guess, leaking this on purpose? Do you think there's any kind of strategic leaks on this? Yeah, like, is there like strategic kind of leaks on this type of stuff? Because this is a big time decision. I would hope that this is something that everyone can kind of come to, a conclusion to. But yeah, like, I guess, just where are you at with that type of idea, where this is something that the Lakers leak a little early? I see that, I guess, people in the chat are saying Woj is still denying that there's been an exact contract that's been mentioned. I think Shams has kind of echoed similar sentiments there. But yeah, like, just in terms of the stuff that you've heard, is there any chance you think some of this is also the Lakers test ballooning, as you said, this information?
Yeah, I think especially so I'll just be upfront. My sourcing on this stuff isn't direct enough for people to test balloon things through me. And frankly, like, I don't matter enough to test balloon things through. I don't have a big enough platform to where my stuff reaches enough Lakers fans for it to really benefit the Lakers to see that. But I do think, though, that like when you see stuff from Woj, right? So he's reporting apparently that the Lakers haven't offered JJ Redick a contract. Right. I think that there's a I don't think it's a coincidence if we're to believe Woj there, which I don't. But if we're to believe Woj, then I don't think it's at all a coincidence that JJ Redick would be linked to the Detroit Pistons, because he's sitting here like, if he hasn't received a contract yet, he's probably, like the rest of us, would probably say, like, well, why not? And I think when Woj says that the Lakers haven't offered a contract yet, I would imagine that because Woj gets his stuff a lot of times, like, he and Rob are very, very close, and if he's saying that the Lakers haven't offered a contract, I think that could be a test balloon from the Lakers to be like, all right, are fans getting impatient? Do they want JJ Redick? And based off of the reaction to this, what might the next step look like? And again, this is where it's tough, because one, I don't know specifically who all Woj talks to. I have a good idea on who specifically one person that Woj talks to. Shams, like, the fact that he, like, not even publicly but behind the scenes, is apparently telling people that, like, the Hurley thing was always noise. Like, that seems weird. That, like, okay, if you think that that's that's actually the case, why not go publicly with that? You saw Woj go publicly with that direct a shot at Shams.
Right.
And like with like the ESPN links here and the CAA links too, like Woj might be operating on behalf of CAA and being like, hey guys, what's the holdup here?
Mhm.
So it isn't a matter of like backpedaling. It isn't a matter of like whatever. My stance here is that Redick is going to be the guy. My stance here and my reporting has still indicated to me that the Lakers have arrived at JJ Redick as the guy. And I think that they have some sticker shock at how much it's going to cost, no matter who they hire. Like if it's
Right.
Borrego, they're going to be competing for Borrego. If it's Adelman or Nori or Cassell, whoever doesn't hire Borrego, there's going to be competition for those guys too. And I think the at one point I joked today that they could go out and hire Monty Williams because Monty Williams is already paid. So like that would be the cheapest option. I think
Oof.
with what the Lakers are getting ready to do here, and what this announcement looks like, and the timing of all of this, and the execution of all of this, like to me, the bigger story isn't my reporting when it gets done, all this stuff. It's the fact that the Lakers are now 7 weeks into a coaching search and still haven't made an offer to the best candidate that they have had a real shot at. Like that, like if I were a Laker fan, I wouldn't, and like you guys can call this coping on my end if you want. But to me, I wouldn't be angry at me for reporting the stuff that I have. I'd be asking the Lakers, well, what the fuck is the holdup? What are we waiting for the guy that you consider the guy? Like if you really consider, and I do have that down pat, that they think that Redick is the guy and they have thought this guy is the guy. Like if that is the case and he hasn't received a contract offer, even after meeting with management for however many hours over the weekend in what I was told were productive and well-run meetings, if now you're multiple days away from that, like, and you still haven't offered the guy, that's a much bigger story than whether or not I had this right 48 hours ago. And by the way, Woj, Shams, like they both have vested interests in throwing dirt on my story, because if I had it right before them, what is Woj making $9 million a year from ESPN for? What is Shams making all the money that he makes from the Athletic when my wonky ass got it, days ago? So like with all of this stuff, there's just a lot of noise going on. And to me, if you're going to believe Woj's story, the story here is that somehow they haven't gotten this right again.
Right. Yeah. And annoying part, we started the show with the obviously Drake Kendrick kind of not back and forth, really just a fourth with Kendrick's show tonight. But I feel like the Lakers are the J. Cole in this, where they've been in the middle of a Shams and Woj kind of back and forth, diss track for say. And they've just kind of been in the middle trying to fight off. And like we're just looking for our coach. And it's been, obviously Dan Hurley, and then back and forth, again it's JJ. I'm not sure. I've said that I've thought it would be JJ this whole time, and I think the LeBron connection is part of this. You're right. The draft is in a week. We have not much time left for that. You would want your head coach in these discussions, even though, like, obviously JJ is not going to be making the pick at 17 or wherever the Lakers make a selection, or if they don't. But you would want your head coach at least being involved, right? I think free agency already started, which is new for the league this year. You got transactions being approved of teams being able to talk to their, incumbent players, getting extensions done. You would hope your coach is involved with that. And Anthony, like, I think the reporting also has been a little bit murky on how many, again, I'm not in this kind of the reporter part of this, but the official interview versus unofficial interviews, right? Like I'm hoping them, JJ and the Lakers have not just talked on Saturday. Hopefully there's been phone calls. Hopefully there's been text messages. Hopefully there's been, I don't remember how many cooks he said were in the kitchen, but like a 5-way, text chat going on between him, the Ram by and Pelinka and Bus and all those people. So hopefully there's been conversations happen there. But you're right. I think most Laker fans just want this done. It's Darvin Ham got fired, months ago. We just watched the Celtics win the championship. Like, people want some good Laker news to hang their hat on, other than just the Lakers are going to draft Bronny, which it feels like they're going to.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we will see what all of this looks like, when the news drops and stuff. And the only reason the when matters right now, like, is when you come to a conclusion and it takes you a week to carry out the decision that you have to make with that conclusion, that doesn't indicate to me that the organization is operating at an optimal level. And we saw that with Darvin Ham. And like the whole time that the Darvin thing was going on, the whole reason that they were waiting for that is because of all of the heat that they got when they fired Frank Vogel, like 5 minutes after that season ended. And he had to answer questions about it right after that final game. And look, learning from your mistakes is a valuable character trait. Like, that is not something that I'm going to throw shade at. But also, like, if all of your deliberation is performative rather than productive, then, like, what did you actually learn? Like, if everything that you do is basically to duck smoke from your fan base, then what are we doing? And I think that that's where I find myself. What, like, I was asked again on one of the shows that I did yesterday. I was asked, like, how I feel about the Lakers, if that has changed, through this process or whatever. And it has. Like, it how couldn't it have? They basically bungled the Ty Lue situation. They waited so long to make a decision on Ty Lue that Monty Williams said, "Okay, fuck you guys. I'm going to go get I'm going to take the Phoenix job." And then wouldn't stand on business to hire Jason Kidd because of the noise that we at ESPN at Silver Screen actually made. Like, I wrote the article that outlined Jason Kidd's legal issues and why hiring him wouldn't send the greatest message there either. And then, they basically just kind of looked around at the room after everybody had walked out of it and said, "Oh, well, all right, Frank, you want the job?" And then Frank is the head coach. And then he wins a championship. And because they never believed in Frank from the get-go, it didn't matter that he won a championship. They fired him a couple years later anyway. And then when they fired him, they didn't really have the best plan in place. They said that Darvin, they wanted to go out and get a young coach for some reason for a LeBron team. Don't understand what they were thinking there. Darvin Ham winds up, like, that inexperience winds up biting him in the ass, and they wind up firing him. And they very clearly fired him with no plan on the other side. The Phoenix Suns fired Frank Vogel only after they had reached an agreement with Mike Budenholzer. Like, they were talking to Mike Budenholzer to figure out what the deal would look like to get him over there. And once they had that figured out, they fired Frank. But they didn't, like, it's kind of like a job, right? You never quit a job until you know what else you have lined up. And I think here with the Lakers, they quit a job with Darvin Ham and don't seem to have had any kind of real consistent plan ever since. And, like, if I were a Laker fan, again, if you're watching this show, chances are you aren't one of the people who are in my mentions making noise or whatever. But to me, for me, like, just me talking to you, Raj, Laker fan, even though you're not the typical Laker fan, you, or even the what little fandom is left in me at this point, like, I am sitting here as a Laker fan saying, like, what the like, can somebody be an adult there? Or can you bring an adult into the room? Can we try that one time? Can you learn from your mistakes one time?
Right. Yeah. And so, Anthony, one of my goals is to bring that Laker fan out of you a little bit, to make it larger every time I go on. But I think
the Lakers' goal is to just keep squeezing it further
keep crushing
and further.
Yeah. I'm gonna hold it as long as I can. But I think one of the most upsetting parts, I think, just as as a fan, and I think I speak for most fans with this, and the most frustration part of the Dan Hurley thing, and it's been a kind of theme with this, is the Lakers not getting their number one guy. right? Like that's been consistent, right? And that's been with Vogel. Darvin Ham, I guess, was the number one guy. But again, this year JJ was the number one guy, and then it's kind of the Dan Hurley situation made it so now JJ is the second guy, and the reporting that's come out is JJ understood that, I guess, and that's part of the reporting that's been coming out with that. But I think that's the annoying part, and I've compared and again, I would have rather not known about this Hurley situation and just move on with JJ, but it reminding me of the Kawhi situation, Anthony, and like the way you're speaking about of are there grown-ups in the room, but like, are you doing your homework, right? Like,
Yeah.
like it's like the Kawhi thing just appeared, right? And just you look at the difference, and not to give the Clippers credit here, but because they did some very shady things during that, but the Clippers followed Kawhi around for a year, like they, you know what I mean, like that
Lawrence Frank
recruitment.
was like following him, watching his games
Yes,
all over the league.
right, that recruitment was a year long. Like, they did not just go, "Oh, Kawhi's available? Oh, bring him in. Like, let's
Yeah.
sell him on Steve Ballmer's Microsoft stock," or
Toilet.
whatever. Yes, whatever it is. No, they followed him around. They found out what he likes. They found out what's important to him. They found out what he values, right? Which is obviously his family and his uncle, like whatever it is. But like, there's obviously stuff that he valued that they brought to the table, and the Lakers like, "Oh, Kawhi's available. Oh, let's get a meeting." LeBron and Kawhi's like, "Oh, all right, like, let's make this meeting." And then obviously Kawhi, I think, used us for leverage in ways that are playing out now with the Paul George situation. But yeah, I compare that to this Hurley situation, right? Where it just came out of nowhere. Nobody, it was, bombshelled by Woj, and only Woj, guy who wrote the book on Hurley's dad, which I don't think is a coincidence either. And the Lakers flew him in, I guess, and offered him an offer that he did not accept. But hopefully these are things that, like, you would hope you did your homework on. You hope that, there was more than just, oh, this guy's available, let's just throw him a contract. And I think that's the part that you're speaking to. And I think that most Laker fans are frustrated with is this just consistent, just chasing whatever's hot without any plan, without any program, without any vision. Right. And I think that's what most people are frustrated with. Like, even if JJ comes in, he is now the second fiddle to Dan Hurley. He will be compared to Dan Hurley. His losses, if he starts out slow, it's all, we should have just paid Dan Hurley, right? And Dan's gonna win at UConn next year. Like, comparing Dan Hurley's record in UConn to whatever the Lakers do would be the wrong decision. But I think a lot of fans are going to go that route. And I think that's the frustrating part to me, is consistently not getting the guy. Like, if JJ was your guy, I agree with you, Anthony. You should be linked to a deal right when the finals end. He should be announcing that.
Yeah, there's just no organization. There's no plan. There's no coherent plan. Like, you would think, right? Like, you would think that would be, you're right, Raj. Like, especially after you miss out on Hurley. If JJ Redick was at or near the top of your list, once you miss out on Hurley, you circle back to him, you bring him in, and then like you say, all right, we all move forward after this. And again, like, essentially, this is the stupid thing, Raj. That's the version of the story that I've been given. That they did circle back to JJ, that they did have productive meetings, that they walked away from that thing and are very confident that they're going to get the guy. But this is a thought that has been in the back of my mind, and I was kind of saving it for tomorrow if we again didn't get this, if we don't get the news again tomorrow. But a thing that I like, you mentioned Kawhi. During that whole Kawhi thing, the Lakers were super confident they were getting Kawhi.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
they
Laker
thought they
legends
had
were tweeting
that
it out.
lined up. They had that done, signed, sealed, done. And then I remember being there in Vegas, right? When I was sitting there at the table with Treadell when that news dropped. And he, I would imagine Treadell knows a thing or two about a thing or two. And even he was like, like, he just boomed the F word in the middle of this crowded restaurant. We all kind of scattered because there was a lot of team personnel in that restaurant. So that's one example. Another recent example was Dan Hurley himself, where they have those meetings with Hurley over the weekend. And I'm told the Lakers thought that they went really, really well, that they had confidence in the offer that they made him, and that it would be enough to get him to be there. But like you said, Raj, not only did he turn down their offer, but he had a whole ass media tour afterward to tell everybody about the fact that he didn't take the offer and called the Lakers broke. Like, and he said that there was a number that they could have reached, and they chose not to reach there. By the way, over that process, he leaked what that number was, and they chose not to go there, and they were still confident as of Monday morning when he finally made his decision. One, I was told that the Lakers didn't know how that was going, that they were waiting with everybody else to see how that was going to play out. That's insane. How does a professional organization not have any idea there? And then two, all right, you don't get that guy. You circle back around. There's got to be an immediate, like that was the thing that we all credited Rob Pelinka with when Kawhi happened, was that he had everything lined up for if Kawhi didn't go, he put together a team that winds up winning a championship. And like, how have they regressed here? It's honestly like, it's a little bit like the Darvin Ham thing, where he miraculously, as a rookie head coach, gets the Lakers to the Western Conference Finals, given the shit show that season was. And you think going into his second season that, like, yeah, this guy's he's the most experienced second year head coach that you could possibly be. And then he got worse. Like, I think we can all objectively say that Darvin Ham was worse in his second year than he was as a rookie. And I think here with the Lakers, like, you know, when you're as insulated and intubated as the Lakers currently are, you're going to be operating with bad information a lot of times. The Lakers don't have pro personnel. I've said this on the show before. Smart teams like the Clippers basically employ people to go walk around and listen to conversations and grab all of that intel and bring it back to the Clippers. And that's those people's entire jobs. You have like player scouts, and then you have like arena scouts, and they sit there and they gather all of this information about teams, about how teams feel about the Clippers, and about all of these things. And the Lakers don't even have like pro scouts. They have people watching on League Pass, and that's like the extent of the scouting that they do throughout the league. And yeah, like look, Steve Ballmer and Jeannie Buss's pockets are very, very different. But when we talk about the lack of intel or incomplete intel that the Lakers are consistently working with, this is where that shows up. This is where that pops up.
Yeah, I think also part of this, Anthony, there's a level of, at least it should be, right? I think in the correct Laker universe, or maybe this was in past times or whatever, there's a level of prestige that like the Laker job should have, and I think still does to an extent. But I think that's the way they're operating. Like, honestly, like, I think I could say this here, and I've said this in private spaces. I don't think the Dan Hurley offer was a disrespectful offer in the way that it's being played out or the way that it's being talked about. In a vacuum, it's a fine offer, but this is not a vacuum. You are trying to pull a guy out from a situation he likes. And again, these are conversations that there's no way, Anthony, you've been in this business in a long time. Like, I've seen how negotiations go on. It's not how it works where you call a guy, you say, hey, fly on this plane and come over, and you never talk about the contract, you never talk about the stipulations, and you never talk about I guess like what agreements need to be made.
We're told that again with Redick this last time. They flew Redick out. He was calling the finals from across the country.
But that's just not how organizations operate, though. That's just, you know, like usually when a guy flies in, it's kind of just to take out the extra details, right? Whatever details need to be ironed out is usually what happens when a guy flies in. Usually they don't fly in to reject you. And then Dan Hurley pulled the LaMarcus Aldridge, where Aldridge was like, they didn't talk about basketball in there at all, kind of thing, where Dan Hurley did, you know, after the fact. But it's just a very strange situation. Again, it's annoying as a fan for all, and I'm talking just as a pure Laker fan here, for all this to always play out publicly. Always. This stuff just always plays out in like the public forum, which I think, you know, hurts just the team. And I would like it for Rob and, you know, them, and they'll never do this, but just come out and be like, yeah, Dan Hurley wasn't real. Dude never stepped into our practice facility. But yeah, it's strange when all this stuff kind of plays out very publicly, and we'll see what, you know, what happens with JJ. Just, you hope this gets done soon. You know, the draft is next week. My favorite event, Summer League, is coming in like 3 weeks, and you hope that you have a head coach by that time. But again, it's very strange to not have this done, to have JJ being linked to the Pistons really the only candidate left, right? Like you can't lose JJ Redick. That's a very strange way to put it, but you just can't lose him as your coach. You just can't. The other options just aren't good enough. James Borrego, and I, I don't even know who's next up on that list after that. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully this gets done tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. It needs to be done ASAP. And it's, if we're to believe Woj, that is the much bigger story than whether or not like I had the timing right or the words that I used when I explained the story. They like the fact if the Lakers haven't offered JJ Redick a contract days after flying him out to meet for hours, what the hell were you talking about for 2 hours? If like contracts never came up, or what a deal could possibly look like, or a deal expectations, if that never came up, like what exactly were you talking about? And by the way, it would explain why I have heard that JJ Redick kind of cooled on the Lakers. Like what about this process would indicate to somebody that like, yep, this is how business is done. Like if I were JJ Redick and I was like, man, this is how you guys live? Like this is how you guys are living? This is what you're expecting me to like sign my name to in my first opportunity as a head coach? Like this is what and then if he walks away from that situation and doesn't get an offer, I'm sure he's like, again, I've met over this process for hours and hours and hours with you people, and again I don't get a contract offer. I'd be like, you know what? Leak my name to the Pistons. Link me to the Pistons. These people aren't serious.
Right. And his number, Anthony, to me, you said 670, right? Was the Hurley number. Mm-hmm. His number starts there. Like it just does. That's how this works. Yeah. That number comes out. That's how it starts, right? It's like, what do you like? How much is it? How much do you have? Like, oh, I don't like. No, you have 670. That's how much it starts at. That's the bottom. That's where the bar starts. So, yeah, and again, I'll echo those same sentiments that JJ's built a media empire. He doesn't. It's not exactly the Hurley situation, but to me, it's similar. JJ Redick's in a very cushy position, very cushy job position, very little mental strain, I believe. I'm not saying it's not a difficult job, but I'm sure just it's different than as a player or even a head coach. JJ does not have to leave. So you have to kind of, I guess, get him out of that situation. And it's going to cost a number that's not normal for a rookie head coach, which is why I think just the other coaches' numbers didn't matter to me in the Hurley situation. And it doesn't matter in this JJ Redick situation, what another coach works, whether another coach is making. So yeah, hopefully they get this done. Hopefully this has been done, as you pointed out yesterday. And these are just, final details that are getting ironed out as the Lakers and JJ come to a agreement in hopefully tomorrow.
It's also possible, by the way, Redick was tired from covering the finals and covering the season and this entire ordeal and basically said, you know what, give me a few days to mull this over. Now, there again, what is he mulling over if he hasn't been offered a contract? But like that, again, I just can't believe. Just like, look, I was right, by the way, on the Hurley thing. Like the fact that Woj was telling everybody that like Hurley was the guy, always the guy, all of that stuff. And it somehow took a month for the Lakers to have their first formal interview with Dan Hurley. That smelled fishy. And I'm just saying again here right now, Woj saying that Redick hasn't been offered a contract smells fishy. I'm sorry. It just does. And this guy's been caught in a lie on this very story already. And I don't understand, I don't understand how somehow him going with this report somehow makes me the fraud here when he literally lied to you guys about Dan Hurley being the guy always. That is just not true. And same goes for like Shams when it was his side of this equation where he was like, yeah, Hurley never mattered in this. Hurley literally got an offer. If he never mattered, he wouldn't have gotten an offer. And yet again, like it's always, it's going to be, I am the fraud here for being ahead of these two guys and them having a very clear vested interest in needing to be ahead of me on the story and wanting to be ahead of me on, not even counting, by the way, the handshake deals and how information is literally peddled in these things, where the Lakers are probably saying like, okay, we need, Woj wants this scoop, and he needs to get this scoop, and Rob wants to be on good terms with Woj. Let's make sure it's Woj who gets this scoop. Like, that's how this stuff works, man. Like, Woj literally has a GM meeting every year in Vegas. Like, that's how these things and these conversations go. But anyway, we've been doing this for an hour. We didn't have nearly enough fun with Kendrick Lamar's thing. We got way too into the weeds. So next time, Raj, you're on, we'll just break it down. Are you going to rewatch the Kendrick thing? Or are you going to go back?
I'll just say this. I think 5 times was a lot. Like, there was no reason. There was no need to play it 5 straight times. I think that was a lot. I think he kind of overdid it there. I thought the show was great though, up until he came out with Euphoria as the first song.
When you heard that first note, were you like,
right?
Oh, it's gonna be like this.
So usually people don't rap like the whole thing. He did the whole 7 minutes, which I was very surprised. Like, usually they do like half or the best part or a verse. He did the whole thing. No, but I think I'll just close with this. I think it was a great moment in rap, and I hope people just appreciate the sport of it, right? And like, people are crowning J. Cole from staying out of it. I disagree with that take, Anthony. Like, all these guys are in the league, right? They're all stars. Like, you want to see the all stars play against each other. And J. Cole was like, "No, I'll sit on the side while you guys play 1-on-1." We're like, "No, it's a game of 21. Like, we're playing 21. You could join in." And J. Cole's like, "Nah." And now we're killing the dude that stepped in and actually like tried to guard him and got hit with,
well,
3
but like,
fadeaway.
that's how it goes though, right? Like, the
Sure.
when you watch pickup and you have the best player on the court. And the one guy is like, you know what? Fuck it. I got this guy. I got him. And then that guy gets crossed up. Nobody says, hey, man, kudos for trying. Everybody goes over there and laughs at the person because their ankles just got broken.
Right.
Like,
You don't credit the 7-footer for trying to block the dunk. You just laugh at him for getting dunked on, for sure. For sure. I understand that. I'm just saying that the guy he's playing against also averages like 26 and 8, right? Like, he wasn't going against a scrub either. But I understand where it's gone, and hopefully people can understand this was like a really dope moment for rap. Yeah. But I'll take the L on this. It's okay. It's been a tough week.
You have a choice, dude. He threw you the L 5 times. He was like, L, 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 L. Like, he was just dude, he had 20,000 people calling Drake a pedophile 5 times over.
Oh my God. Yes.
The actual word. Unbelievable.
We'll just wait for the album.
He just filmed the music video. Like, that's what we were watching. He just filmed the whole thing.
Right. Yeah.
He's gonna have the guy that Drake dapped up on the sidelines in Toronto in his music video.
Lakers announced JJ. Man, let's announce this. Let's announce JJ Redick tomorrow, please.
Yeah. All right. That is gonna do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. A reminder, please do hit that subscribe button here on YouTube. If you guys are watching on Twitter, head on over to youtube.com/@LakersLounge. If you guys are listening to this in the morning via podcast, please do hit subscribe anywhere that you get your podcast, preferably on Odyssey. And then check out, I would say sometime soon, just like we were waiting for the Darvin thing, I have a piece on JJ Redick that should be dropping for Lakers Daily. Oh, shoot. Good point, LeBron to Kobe LA. Gosh, my bad. I got to play this before we get to all of them. Good job, Laker to, or LeBron to Kobe to LA or whatever. Nick just sent $1.99. So shouts to Nick. He did ask, any chance the Lakers get Donovan Mitchell? Right now, it's look, I think part of the holdup with James Borrego is he's like, hey, like, what's the deal with Mitchell? Like, am I going to have both Garland and Mitchell? Like, are you guys? I think it's going to be really interesting there if Mitchell, I guess there's some whispers that if Mitchell does re-up, that Garland might ask out, and we would kind of see what that looks like. I'm not really all that interested in Garland. His profile is very similar to D'Angelo Russell, and he costs like twice as much. So I'm kind of good there. But at one point at last year's deadline, the Lakers seemed more confident in Mitchell. A lot of that has kind of eased, and I think the Lakers are more focused on role player upgrades at this year's deadline.
I love Mitchell, by the way, one of my favorite guards in the league. So
yeah, I've warmed to Mitchell, but I just don't know if it's going to happen. How Jeannie runs this franchise, using that as a guide. If I was to open a fine dining restaurant, I would employ some friends because they make some good hamburgers. Yeah, it would be kind of like going to a like you're opening.
I don't get that. I don't understand that.
I'll explain it. So, like picture you're opening a restaurant. You're opening a restaurant that you're hoping to get a Michelin star for. And as you're opening this restaurant, you go to a barbecue, you go to a cookout, and the person who is cooking these burgers that might be fire, they might be incredible burgers, but you go up to this person and you're like, hey, what do you think about cooking at a Michelin restaurant? What do you think? Are you interested? Any thoughts?
I see.
And you hire that person, and that's where you start everything out, right? Or like
gotcha.
I am pretty good on the grill. Like I consider myself a pretty good griller. I'm not very good at sides. I am a terrible saucier, I think is what the term is. I am terrible at those things, but I am very good at the grill. If somebody tried my food and hired me to cook at a Michelin restaurant, I would accept the money, but I would wonder about like this person's instincts at that restaurant. Does that make more sense, Raj?
It does. Maybe I was just hungry. I saw hamburgers. I was like, what is he talking about?
Man, that sounds good. Justin Tyndall, again, the fact Linda Rambis and her husband has a say just blows my mind. This team will never contend till someone stands up to Jeannie and says, we actually need real basketball people in here running this. The problem is, as soon as like the way that it has been kind of described to me, by some people who actually have some experience with the Lakers, is that like you do not piss off Jeannie and you do not piss off Linda, because once you do, you are out. And you know, that's just, it's a tough way to run a business. Justin Tyndall writes again, I'm pissed off that Jeannie uses Lakers history as a mask for incompetence, and she continues with the status quo as other franchises with wealthy owners just pass us. Post LeBron, there is no plan. I mean, like, to those people, right, Raj, that like who say, oh, we're ready for LeBron to go. Screw LeBron. He's just, he's too demanding and all of that stuff. This has been your intro. LeBron said, I have my hands off of this search. And to those of you who have like wondered what or hoped for a post LeBron era, how have you felt about this coaching search? Just give me your honest thoughts on that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, I think people are gotta be careful what they're wishing for on that. And yeah, it looks like there's no plan, and that's the most frustrating part for sure.
It's just, that's always been my thing. Like I've always said that I trust competence. That is the starting point of my analysis. And the most competent person at what they are expected to do is LeBron James. I want him to stick around. Like that's
right.
You know, because everybody else being asked to do anything. Justin Tyndall again, Bron and AD keep our head above water. Once Bron retires, then what? Yeah, like you know, and that's a lot to ask of AD. Like he hasn't been like New Orleans. At times was kind of underwhelming with AD as the cornerstone of that franchise. And by the way, he'll be in his mid-30s when that time comes.
I think you worry about that when that time comes. You cross that bridge when it happens. I don't want to think about that yet.
Right, guy. If JJ ain't the coach, you got to start texting other people. Fam, clearly ain't a done deal. Rob on the phone with Monty, tapping on availability. Like, look.
Oh, I hope not.
You're right. Honestly, right? Like you're not wrong. Like if the people that I'm getting this intel from wind up being that kind of wrong, what you do in that moment is you follow up and you ask what happened with that intel, and you operate moving forward. It's like it's the opposite of what happened with the Lakers source who told me I needed to pump the brakes on JJ the first time around. I didn't ignore that person, but I didn't weigh that input in the way that I should have, and it impacts the way that I move forward with that source. Just like in this case, if the people who have told me that the Lakers have, landed on JJ's name as their next head coach, and they wind up being wrong moving forward, I'm going to have to say, like, all right, but like, what happened that one time? And that's something that we're always we all are being lied to. We all are being fed bullshit. And it's our job to sort through that bullshit to give you guys the most concise and organized version of the story that we possibly can. And that's where I find myself. And look, I'll be the first to admit, this is the first full year basically that I've been trying to do the reporting thing. And I have told you guys at every step that part of this reporting thing that I'm trying to do is I want to be as transparent with you guys about my reporting, beyond just the reporting itself. And in this case, I will be the first person to tell you I am operating with less sourcing than Shams and Woj. Guilty. Like, you caught me. But that doesn't mean, though, that I don't have the more logical version of the story here, which I truly and confidently believe I do. BG the Kid writes, do Lakers people know that you crushed them on the reg? You're 100% on spot on. They do. I am told I am not very popular over there. And that this year in Vegas is going to be super interesting because it'll be the first time that I will be meeting some of those people, seeing as I cover the team from Austin. But yeah, that'll be. I will make sure to meet Rob Pelinka in a well lit room with other people around. Raj, you're my backup there.
I will be there. Yes.
All right. Now that apologies for almost forgetting the super comments there. I greatly appreciate those. Obviously, actually, got a DM from somebody else who does this, who was pointing out the live comments and how insane it is that you guys keep doing that. And I believe it's insane too. And I am greatly appreciative of it. But Raj, I've held you for too long. I'm going to let you go rewatch that concert. I myself am going to rewatch that concert, and enjoy the rest of my night doing that while I edit. Maybe we can text back and forth while I do it. Do you want me to like live tweet it to you?
No, I'm okay. I think once is good for now.
Do you want me to do it 4 more times?
No, it's all right. I think he did it. Actually, Kendrick did it 6 times. He just didn't do the verse the 6th time. The song played. So I think that was enough. He got enough.
I wonder if he's gonna change the song now to like wop 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 wop. Like, have a great one, everybody.